Greetings and salutations. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Severe MMA Picks and Plays here on the Severe MMA YouTube page. I am your friendly neighborhood Spencer Manny, Spencer Kyte, flying solo today. My usual partner in crime, my usual co-host, Mr. Ian O'Neill, is at home in Ireland. He and his missus have departed to go and take a well-earned, well-deserved, well-needed, I'm sure, trip back home. As I record this, Ian is at the family homestead, sitting in front of the fire, likely sipping a beverage of some kind with the family, and I wish him all the best doing so. I miss him. I enjoy getting to sit and have this banter every week as we do on this program, but I understand the need for downtime, family time, getting back home and reconnecting. So I wish you all the best, IO and Mrs. IO. Before we get into UFC Las Vegas, which is headlined by Merab Dvalishvili and Petr Yan this weekend at the theater at Virgin Hotels in Las Vegas, we do the same thing we do every week, and we look backwards to UFC 285. On the pick front, I went 7-7. I had some underdogs. They didn't work out. So for the year, I am 49, 34-2. Not where I want to be, but still okay. We need to go on a little run here of putting up some 70% winners to get to close to where I want to be, maybe even 80% winners. Ian, on the other hand, went 9-5. Closed the gap on me. He stands for the year at 48, 35-2. I got a one-game lead. And as much as this is just for fun, it is still also competitive. I do not want to lose the pick competition on my own show, on this show that I started here, doing this thing that I've been doing for a dozen years. So I got to step my game up. I got to build that lead back out. Maybe it's this week while Ian's not here. Maybe he's got some other things on his mind and the picks didn't come in as robust and as thought out as they would normally. Who knows? On the wagering front last week at UFC 285, I wagered $626. I cashed for $467.25. So I'm down $158.75. And look, last week was a lesson for me, another good lesson. Because if I don't chase that Cameron Simon finish bet, which was $200, I make a profit for the second straight week, and it's a reasonable profit. It's a healthy profit, right? You put $200 in there that isn't part of that money out. We're making a $40-odd profit, which means we're up $50 for the last 2 weeks, which looks great. Really helps the ROI. But alas, we didn't. Shoulda, woulda, coulda, and all of that. Trying to do better this week. So for the year, I am down $340.71. Again, much like the picks, not where I want to be. Got to start having some profitable evenings. Ian wagered $190. He cashed tickets for $190.63. So he turned a 63-cent profit. And as he said to me when I told him at the end of the night, profit is profit. So for the year, IO is down $278.87. This week, he does not have any wagers. I do have his picks, so we will keep track of those as we go forward in the pick competition, or just keeping track of the picks. Maybe it's only a competition to me. But no bets, so he's going to get, like, this is another one of those ones where he can distance himself just by not spending any money. I could lose a bunch of money. I'm hoping to win a bunch of money. On that front, as we say every week, as we discuss all the time, as is always posted in the show notes, if you are doing this, please do so responsibly. If you are wagering on MMA, any sports, anything whatsoever, please do so responsibly. For Ian and I, this program is strictly paper money. It is monopoly money. It is ones and zeros on a spreadsheet. We are not making these wagers. It is done to add some further intrigue, some further interest, to take a look at some different angles and elements of this sport, of these matchups that can pique your interest. It has become a big thing in sports and especially in MMA, the betting side of things. And so we wanted to make sure we were out here covering that part of the market. But for us, it is fun. It is pretend. We are not wagering. It is severe MMA dollars, as we have said many times. So if you or anyone you know is struggling with problem gambling, please check out the show notes for the links to get help in the United States, Canada, Ireland, and the United Kingdom. They're listed in the notes. We want everybody to have fun with this. Problem gambling is a real thing. I've been around it my entire life. I know Ian has as well. We don't want anybody to get stuck in that. It's a rough hole, and please do your best. If you or your loved ones, anyone you know is struggling, please reach out and get help, including to us here on the program. My DMs on both Instagram and Twitter are always open. Reach out if need be. We love you. We care about you. We want this to be fun and not an issue for anybody. Which brings me to UFC Las Vegas. As I said, the theater at Virgin Hotels, headlined by Petr Yan and Merab Dvalishvili, a fight card with 5 bantamweight matchups, really puts the bantamweight division in the spotlight. I wrote about that this week at OSDB Sports. It is up now. You can go and check that out. I appreciate it if you do. We get to this main event. We're just going to dive right in. We're going to get rolling. Petr Yan, Merab Dvalishvili, number 2 versus number 3 in the bantamweight division, former champion versus surging contender. My pick is Petr Yan. I just think that over 5 rounds, and due to the level of competition, I see more avenues to victory for Petr Yan. This is a fight where he's going to have to show right out of the gate, as Harry and I discussed on the preview show, that he can stuff this takedown, that he can neutralize the forward pressure, the relentless attack of Dvalishvili. But I do think he has the weapons and the capabilities to do it. And Harry made a great point on the show about Merab being a pressure wrestler and sort of more of a, as we talked about, more of a return you to the mat over and over rather than a keep you in positions. He's not a jiu-jitsu based grappler. He is a wrestling based grappler. And Petr Yan has good wrestling, has good scrambling ability, is actually good himself in the clinch with the trips and things of that nature from the Muay Thai background. And so I tend to lean on the fact that Yan will know what he needs to do and be able to implement that over the course of 5 rounds. But I also don't know that it goes that far. And this is where my plays come in. I've got $20 on Petr Yan to finish at plus 210, which returns $62. And the thing that sticks in my head is really the Marlon Moraes fight more than anything else. Because Marlon Moraes had Merab Dvalishvili hurt, almost dead to rights, and just couldn't put him away. And then Merab recovers as Marlon Moraes flags, and he ends up getting a finish of his own in the 2nd round. I don't think Petr Yan is going to get hurt. I don't think he is going to struggle as we go later in this fight. We've seen throughout his career that he's capable of going the distance in these fights. And so my logic, my thinking, my belief is that as this fight actually progresses and Petr Yan is stuffing takedowns and forcing Merab to work more and more and more for these entries, for these takedowns, the body work that he does, the leg kicks that we know are going to come, everything that he does just starts to accumulate. And as we get into the late 3rd, 4th, 5th rounds, he starts chipping away and is able to put Merab out, get him out of there, stop the winning streak, reassert himself at the top of this division, and keep himself, I should say, in that conversation near the top of the division. He's got a little work to do before he can earn another title shot. Sean O'Malley in front of him, obviously. Henry Cejudo going to get the next title shot. So there's some work and some time he's going to have to put in order to get there. But I think he gets there, and I think it starts this weekend. Should note, I do have Ian's picks here. I'm just going to pull out my phone because it's easier. I know that he picks Petr Yan in this fight as well. And so I'm going to give you Io's picks just so that they're stated, so that they're noted, and so that he is very much represented on this program. As I said, no plays for Ian this week, but we will include his picks. Move to the heavyweight division, the co-main event, Alexander Volkov versus Alexander Romanov. A curious battle to me in terms of a guy coming off a very good 1st round win and a guy coming off his 1st loss. Both Ian and I pick Alexander Volkov, who is a surprising underdog in this fight. My logic goes back to what Harry and I talked about on the preview show, goes to what Dan Tom talked about in his breakdown of this fight on the Action Network. Round one, Romanov is dangerous as can be. Absolutely. We've seen it. And Alexander Volkov, his wrestling defense isn't the greatest. We saw that against Tom Aspinall. But to me, it comes down to both level of competition and what happens when we get past the first 5 minutes. Because I don't know that Alexander Romanov is going to be able to come out and just buzzsaw through Alexander Volkov in the first round, put him on the ground, find a submission, pound him out, whatever it may be. Because I think Volkov will do a good job of staying at range for much of that first round. He is longer. He is taller. He's far more experienced, 45 fights over the course of his career. He knows what he's doing in there. And so as we progress, do those teep kicks to the body, do the long body kicks continue to pile up and add up as Romanov starts to tire and starts to tire. Now, if he has addressed the conditioning issues that have been present in his fights when they go past the first 5 minutes, this becomes a completely different fight and far more intriguing. But I haven't seen that that's happened. And so I have to go with only the things I know. And for me, that means a $100 play on Volkov to win as the underdog at plus 130. It returns $230. This to me feels like a chance to double up and then some on a guy that is ranked higher, far more experienced, faced and beaten better competition, and just to me, again, has more ways to win this fight. If this goes the distance, I don't see Alexander Romanov winning a decision. To me, Romanov needs to finish and probably needs to finish quickly and early, and I just don't think it happens. If Marcin Tybura is able to do all of the things that he did in that first fight, survive the first round, lost the first round, survived it, wasn't ever really in terrible shape, but lost the round, I think Volkov can do the same, get the victory, and send Romanov to a second straight defeat. Move to the light heavyweight division. Former main event from a couple weeks ago, Nikita Krylov and Ryan Spann. Ian and I both, again, in lockstep in picking Ryan Spann. He was my pick a couple of weeks ago when this fight was scratched day of the event. He's my pick again now, and it's the same things. I think Ryan Spann is coming into his own. I think he's hit that point where the talent and the experience and the confidence and everything is just coming together for him. That's to take nothing away from Nikita Krylov, who's on a nice little 2-fight winning streak. But I think the weapons and the tools that Ryan Spann possess elevate him above Nikita Krylov because he's able to do a few more things, present a little more danger in a matchup like this. On the play front, we're laying out a little bit here. So we got $50 on Spann to win at plus 150, which returns $125. $20 on Spann to finish at plus 190, which returns $58. And then $10 on Spann to finish in round one at plus 350, which will return $45. Because I do think this is a fight that very well ends inside of the first round, one way or the other. Obviously, I'm backing Spann. I believe he's going to be the victorious party in this fight. I think he has more ways to get there, more weapons at his disposal. And so in total, it's $80 out. If we get the round one finish, it's $228 back. Lovely, lovely profit. If we just get the finish, not in round one, but say it comes in round two or round three, it's $80 out and $183 in. So still another $103 profit. And if it just goes the distance, if Ryan Spann wins a decision, it's $80 out and $125 back in. So we're still making a $45 profit, which feels to me like a good way to lay this out, to tier out these bets. And so it all comes down, obviously, it all comes down to Ryan Spann winning. This could be Nikita Krylov gets a victory and we got $80 going out the door again. But I'm confident in Spann here. I think the emotion we saw from him after the fight was canceled only bolsters my belief that he is going to be victorious this weekend. Move to the featherweight division. Ricardo Ramos versus Austin Lingo. Again, Ian and I in lockstep with picking Ricardo Ramos. This to me is just a fight where the superior overall talent, the better overall fighter should get the victory. as Harry and I talked about on the preview show, Ramos is one of those guys that just teases in spots. We've had little moments throughout his career where he's landed good finishes, where he's done good things and felt like a guy that maybe is going to move forward. And then he's just sort of stumbled or hasn't gotten there, hasn't had the consistency. Lingo has won a couple fights in the UFC. He hasn't fought in well over a year now. And I just think that his style is predicated on being the tougher guy. He's a guy that goes out there and wins 29-28, close, grimy. Who's going to tire first? Who's got a little bit more left late in the third to pour it on? And I just think that Ricardo Ramos is too good at this point for a guy like Austin Lingo. I think he goes out there, he welcomes the exchanges, and he ends up getting him out of there. And that's where I've got my wager placed, is just $10 on Ramos to finish at plus 115, which returns $21.50. It's just a little thought play based on recent results. Ricardo Ramos' last fight was a finish, a beautiful finish at that. And Lingo's sort of style and willingness to get involved in these knockdown, drag out, beat 'em up fights. We move to the bantamweight division, the second of the 5 fights in the 135-pound weight class. Said Nurmagomedov and Jonathan Martinez. And as I look at my phone again, Ian and I remain in lockstep through these final 5 fights, both picking Said Nurmagomedov. This is not a reflection at all on Jonathan Martinez. This, for me, is a picking the guy that's already proven it to me. So I've seen Said Nurmagomedov beat top 15 opponents, beat Cody Stamann. I saw him last time out. Snatch victory from the jaws of defeat against Saijakub Kakramanov, who was out wrestling him, out striking him, out everything him, and then made a mistake and Said snatched up his neck. Jonathan Martinez is on a 4-fight winning streak. He's won 8 of 10. It should be 9. He's looked really good. But for right now, for me, this is just a question of, have you looked really great against guys you should look really good against and beaten the guys you absolutely should beat if you're a 28-year-old with some talent and ascending and coming from a good gym? Or are you really a guy that's going to press into the top 15 in this absolutely loaded division? I don't have the answer for that yet. That comes this weekend to me. That's what this fight is for Jonathan Martinez, answering that question. And until it's answered, I'm going to side with the guy that I know. In terms of plays, this is a stay away from me because I do think it's a close, competitive fight. I don't like any of the lines. I don't like any of the props that are out there. So we keep the powder dry. We stay away. We just enjoy the fight. We see what happens. We get our answers. We process them. We take them in, and we use them next time out. Main card opener is in the light heavyweight division. Vitor Petrino against Anton Turkai, the Pleasure Man, a pair of Contender Series alums. And for the first time, Ian and I are on opposite sides of things. I am picking Vitor Petrino. He is picking Anton Turkai. My thought with this is simply that Petrino is a younger man and a bit of a more dynamic fighter. As much as Anton Turkai, prior to his appearance on the Contender Series, had been finishing a bunch of people, we saw in that Contender Series fight that when he's against even slightly better competition, it's not as dominant. It's not as one-sided. And I think Vitor Petrino might be better competition. He's in the same boat of having beaten a bunch of guys that he should beat, looked very good against them thus far. But the thing that sways me in his favor, there's a couple points. One, he's 25. So he's young, athletic, dynamic, comes from a good team, a guy that has been there in Cristiano Marcelo. And I just think, and look, maybe I'm reading a little too much into Anton Turkai getting absolutely dominated by Jailton Almeida on short notice, because A, it's Jailton Almeida, and B, it's short notice. But I just think Petrino has more weapons and is a more dynamic fighter and is able to go out, get the victory. In terms of plays, it's just a $5 on Petrino to finish, because I do think Turkai is a guy that when you get him in bad spots, he'll make some mistakes and you can find that choke as Almeida did at UFC 279. So it's $5 on Petrino to finish at plus 150, returns 1250, a little bit of profit, put that $750 in the bank just in case Ryan Spann doesn't win and that $80 goes out the window. We'll see what we can do. We now hit the prelims. There are 8 of them for a 14-fight card this weekend. We start in the heavyweight division with Dana White Contender Series alums Carl Williams and Łukasz Brzeski. My pick is Carl Williams. Ian's pick is Łukasz Brzeski. So I'm not super confident in this pick of Carl Williams. This pick of Carl Williams is more a pick against Łukasz Brzeski, who I think is young, generally speaking, and especially for heavyweight, and doesn't quite know who he is, what he is as a fighter yet. I felt we saw that in his Contender Series win. I felt we saw that in his fight with Martin Buday in his debut. And I just think Carl Williams is a guy coming off a victory over Jimmy Lawson, who is a respected former collegiate wrestler on the Contender Series last year, that this is a guy that knows how to play to his strengths. He knows who he is and what he needs to do. I think this is going to be a relatively boring fight. I think it's going to be a fight where Carl Williams closes the distance, uses some wrestling of his own, kind of gets inside the long range of Łukasz Brzeski. But again, I'm not super confident in this pick. I'm leaning with the American simply because I don't necessarily trust Łukasz Brzeski at this point. Because from what I've seen, it hasn't been great. I'm a little bit surprised he's still on the roster, to be honest, because he won his Contender Series fight in the 3rd round with a submission that wasn't quite a submission against the guy that he should have blown through. He ended up testing positive, serves his suspension, comes back, has a middling fight against Martin Buday that is just kind of like another one of those heavyweight main card slogs. And here we are. So I'm siding with Williams to get the job done in his debut. I think the fact that it's still a relatively small venue, it's not the big stage, is going to aid him here. It's not quite just going back to the Apex and repeating what you did on the Contender Series, but I think he goes out and gets the job done. We will see. No plays. Most of these prelims, actually, all of these prelims are just to stay away from me. And I'll go through them all. I will touch on why for all of them. But this for me is 2 young, inexperienced heavyweights that heavyweight can be over in 40 seconds, can be over in 10 seconds. And so just stay away. No, none of the odds, none of the props, none of the anything. I'm not chasing. I'm trying not to go hunting for wins in spots where losses feel more likely. So we pick Carl Williams. Ian is on the Brzeski side of things. We'll see what happens. Go to the bantamweights, the veterans, Rafael Assunção and Davy Grant. Again, Ian and I are on opposite sides of things. I'm taking Rafael Assunção. He is taking Davy Grant. My logic, my thinking here is just that Assunção has beaten and been in there with a better caliber of opponent and showed last time out against Victor Henry that he's still got it a little bit. He still knows how to win fights against guys that aren't that step ahead of him. So when he was on that 4-fight losing streak, it's all guys that are that understandable step ahead of him, right? It's Marlon Moraes. It's Cody Garbrandt knocking him out. It's Ricky Simone knocking him out. And I can't remember who the 4th was in there. It escapes me at the moment. Not to take anything away from Davy Grant, who I think runs pretty parallel with Assunção and could very well win this fight. Could be the guy that replaces Assunção in his spot that he's in now. 40-year-old goes out, 37-year-old comes in. We trade Brazil for Britain and away we go. But I'm banking on the fact that Assunção looked good last time out in working his first camp with the guys at Extreme Couture, that he's able to come in. The benefit of the full camp, Davy Grant takes this on short notice, jumping in for Kyler Phillips. And so give me full camp Assunção, 2nd straight camp with Extreme, looking to close out the career most likely on a high note, on a victory, on another good win. I think it's a close competitive fight. I think if it does end inside the distance, it's probably from Davy Grant sparking Rafael Assunção with a left hand. I think there's a slight chance of Assunção grabbing a guillotine in this fight if Davy Grant is forced to wrestle and looks to wrestle. But for the most part, I think this is 29-28 on the cards. Assunção gets a victory, gets his hand raised, leaves the gloves in the center of the cage, and rides off into the sunset. No place. Again, no place. It's a coin flip fight to me. Staying away from it. Move to the middleweight division. Cedric Dumas against Josh Fremd. Ian and I are back in lockstep. Both of us picking Dumas, the debuting Contenders Series alum. I think if I could speak for him, this comes down to what Harry and I talked about on the preview show. Dumas is just the far more dynamic talent. There's elements of what he does that you have to sit and take notice of and go, okay, let me see a little more of this. He is a guy that can come out here and earn a victory in under a minute. Head kick, big right hand, big left hand, knee up the middle. He's far more dynamic, far more intriguing than Josh Fremd, who's 0-2 in the UFC at this point, and just feels like one of those guys that, and as always, this is no disrespect to Josh Fremd himself or anyone in the same position as him, but he's a 32-year-old that is, done okay against middling competition on the regional circuit and has shown through 2 fights that it's difficult for him to, he can run level with guys that are inexperienced and not quite fully formed as fighters and still end up on the wrong side of things. That's what happened in the last fight with Trey Gore. And I think that's what's going to happen in this fight here. I expect Josh Fremd to have some good moments, but I think Cedric Dumas puts him out. That being said, again, stay away. This is a debuting newcomer that has 7 fights against not great competition. I'm not going anywhere near him at the money line price that he's at, because that is a crazy number for a debuting fighter with as little experience as Dumas has, against a guy in Fremd that, if he puts it together, can come out and wrestle and clinch and make it ugly and beat him 29-28 on the cards. Staying away. Just want to see what happens. Move again, or back to the bantamweight division. Mario Batista and Guido Canetti. Both Ian and I are picking Mario Batista. This just feels like a knock on wood here for Mario Batista. This just feels like a layup for Mario Batista. I do think Guido Canetti is going to come out aggressively, looking to engage, hoping to sort of take things to Mario Batista, who has been put out by Trevin Jones a few fights back, 4 fights back now. But since then, Batista has looked great. He dominated Jay Perrin, finished Boom Kelleher, finished Benito Lopez, and I think he gets a win and probably gets a finish here against Guido Canetti, who is 43, and as much as he's won his last 2, it's against 2 guys that have been bounced from the UFC, and Chris Matinho and Randy Costa, 2 guys that, built their reputations a little bit, in Costa's case, on quick finishes and looking good before he got finished, and Matinho, who built it on, hey, isn't that guy tough? And as we talk about all the time, especially on the takeaways, if we're sitting here, and they talk about it on the broadcast too, I want to give people their flowers correctly. If we're talking about your toughness as the lead thing that is emblematic of who you are and what you bring to the octagon, that ain't a good thing. And so I think Batista comes out, mixes things up well, changes his levels of striking well. We've always seen him work all 3 levels, head, body, legs. I think he comes out and chops down and puts a hurting on Guido Canetti. I don't know that he finishes. Canetti's a tough, resilient kind of dude. If there is a finish, I think it might come from a body shot. That would be my flyer prop if I could find that and wanted to hunt for it somewhere. But Mario Batista is a -1,000 on the money line is an absolute no. And then chasing and looking at props and looking at finishes versus decisions, I don't know how this is going to go. So again, the trend for the prelims, stay away. No wagers, none. We move to the flyweight division. Ariane Lipski and JJ Aldrich. Ian and I again riding together on Team Aldrich. This is just a fight to me where the more polished, more technical, fully formed, established fighter in this division comes out and just does the easy things, just does the smart technical things. I think this is going to be a fight where some people are kind of bored, kind of not really all that into it, because JJ Aldrich, in my opinion, is just going to jab the face off Ariane Lipski, who's going to need to look to clinch and look to wrestle and look to get it to the ground, maybe look to work from a tie clinch and land some knees inside, but we just haven't seen any of those things consistently from Lipski. And yet I know JJ's going to get out there and she's going to work behind that jab. She's going to work from southpaw. She's going to throw kicks. She can wrestle a little bit. She can grapple a little bit. She's stronger than she looks. I think this is one-way traffic for JJ Aldrich. But again, I'm not getting near it with wagers. There's nothing that I like. I'm not chasing a finish in this fight because JJ Aldrich isn't a finisher. The decision prop isn't worth my investment. So we take the pick, we see if we can get the victory, and away we go. We move again to the bantamweight division for the last time. Victor Henry and Tony Gravely. Ian and I split our picks here. I go Team Henry. He goes Team Gravely. For me, this is more about, or equally, I should say, about the good things Victor Henry does and a little bit of the struggles that we've seen Tony Gravely has as fights progress into the later rounds. Because of his wrestling heavy approach, because of the fatigue, the physique he has, and the fatigue that sets in from that wrestling heavy approach, we've seen Tony Gravely tire. We've seen his pace slow. We've seen his output wane later in fights. And I think this is a fight where Victor Henry can win it in the second and third rounds. He may lose the first round. Tony Gravely is going to come and try to close that distance and force Victor Henry to show wrestling defense, to show that he can get up, to show that he can scramble. All things that I know he can do, that I believe he can do. It's a matter of, can he do it against a guy like Gravely? But then as we stay on the feet, I just think Victor Henry has more tools and more variety to his game that he's able to go out and pick at and work at Tony Gravely the way he did against Raoni Barcelos in his debut last January. This feels to me a little bit like one of those fights where, because Henry lost last time out and he lost to Assunção, who was coming on a 4-fight losing streak, we've sort of shifted our opinions and our approach to Victor Henry. I believe he's still the favorite, but it's not as wide as it would have been had he scored another victory, obviously. But I think there's a slight gap in terms of where these two are in the division. Victor Henry's got a lot of experience. Tony Gravely does as well, but Victor Henry, just to me, is the more complete fighter, is the guy that can do a little bit more, a little bit better, and do it throughout the fight. And I think this is really going to come down to the third round. I think this is going to be a fight that we go into the final round and we say it's 19-19. Whoever wins this round wins this fight, and Victor Henry is just able to do more to get the victory. Again, as we've said throughout the prelims, no place. It's a close fight. Really competitive fight. Part of me this week just wants to sit and watch fights and not be invested. We invested in every fight last week, and it was fun. It certainly added some spice to some fights that I wasn't all the way in on, or like increased my interest in, are these guys going to do these things? Is this going to play out the way that I thought? But I'm not chasing this week. I'm not having any like celebratory UFC Las Vegas fight card moments. So we're keeping the money in my pocket, picking Henry. Ian is picking Gravely. We'll see where it goes. Flyweights, Tyson Nam and Bruno Silva. Again, opposite sides of the coin. I am on Team Tyson Nam. Ian is on Team Bruno Bulldog Silva. The reason I'm picking Nam here, and a lot of it hinges on, I'm recording this, it is 9 a.m. on Friday, March 10th. So Tyson Nam and Bruno Silva will be getting on the scale sometime between now and 11 a.m. So an hour after this posts, or an hour before this posts, weigh-ins will end. Provided Tyson Nam has no issues on the scale, I think he's the more powerful. I think he is the more experienced. And I simply just like the fact that he fought last year. He got a victory in August. We haven't seen Bruno Silva in almost 2 years. And I just think, for a guy that, look, as good as he looked against JP Bays and Victor Rodriguez, Tyson Nam is better than those two dudes. He is a step or two beyond those guys. Now, I don't think he's as good as Tahir Ulanbekov and David Dvorak that beat Bruno Silva in his 2 fights prior to those 2 victories. But I think he's better than Khalid Taha, who beat Bruno Silva in his debut. The fight was overturned, but I think he's beyond that. So to me, this is about where Silva fits in and where Nam fits in, I understand why Bruno Silva is the favorite here. 2 straight victories, both finishes. The last one was in a minute flat. Looks great. The 2 years off scares me. Where were you? What was going on? What are you doing? And I know we asked all of these questions last week about John Jones, and John Jones came out and was like, yeah, I've been gone for 3 years, but I'm still John Jones. Bruno Silva isn't John Jones. Pretty straightforward. I think Tyson Nam can land a big shot or multiple big shots. I think this will be more of a who lands the more telling blows over the course of the fight, either to get a finish or to just pile up that damage and get their hand raised on the cards. I'm siding with Nam simply on the veteran, more power, more recent exposure in the octagon. Provided he makes weight and everything went well, that's my pick. We open the show with a hastily put together welterweight fight. Carlston Harris against Jared Gooden, making his return to the octagon, filling in for Abubakar Nurmagomedov. Both Ian and I in the opener pick Carlston Harris. I think really it comes down to this is a guy that was in camp, ready to go, working to prepare for somebody, and now Jared Gooden steps in. Jared Gooden struggled overall in his UFC career. He got 1 win against Nicholas Stolze, I believe, but outside of that, there wasn't as much volume. There wasn't as much activity. We didn't see a lot of wrestling. It was just sort of hunting for the one power shot, the one overhand, right? And I think Carlston Harris can do a bunch more, especially having gone through a full camp for this. As with everything else on the prelims, it's a stay away because Jared Gooden does have that bomb. And Carlston Harris is good, but not great. And so we'll just hang out over here, far away from the potential landmine fight that this is. And we'll look to our parlays. As always, we do a $1 parlay for the full main card, for the full prelims, and for the full fight card itself. So on the main card, it is Petr Yan, Alexander Volkov, Ryan Spann, Ricardo Ramos, Said Nurmagomedov, and Vitor Petrino. That 6-fight parlay at $1 pools together to create odds of plus 2,520. So $1 returns $26.14. You take it. You got a couple dogs in there and Volkov and Spann, a couple favorites in there at some bigger odds in Ramos and Said. We see what we do. On the prelims, 8 fights. Carl Williams, Rafael Assunção, Cedricus Dumas, Mario Batista, JJ Aldrich, Victor Henry, Tyson Nam, Carlston Harris. $1 at plus 3,543 returns $36.27. That one is knocked down a lot by Cedricus Dumas and by Mario Batista. That minus 1,000 is always going to kill you. It's always going to pull those odds all the way back. It's like the Bo Nickel one last week. Always going to claw those odds back when you got to throw a minus 1,000 in there. But still, $1 to get 36, we'll take it. And if by chance, if this is the week where we go 14 for 14, all those names I just mentioned, $1 plus 95,319. $1 gets you $952.28. Good Lord, would that be fun? Would that ever be nice? We'd suddenly be all the way into the black, doing well, having a celebration next time. It may not happen. The fun thing about this one, and this is going to sound demented, maybe sadistic to some people, masochistic, maybe. Going to know right off the bat. You know right away, right? First fight, it can go, and it's happened many, many times. First fight comes out, we lose. There goes the main card. There goes the prelims. We're not going 14 for 14. So Carlston Harris, it's on you to start this thing off right. Then it's on to Tyson Nam, and so on and so forth. It is on you, ladies and gentlemen, to continue watching all the content that comes out here on the SevereMMA YouTube page. We appreciate it. We love you. We value your time and your investment in us, in our thoughts, in our shows, in our programs. For the departed Ian O'Neill over in Ireland, having himself a great time. I am Spencer Kyte. These have been the Severe Picks and Plays. See you next week.